we stand and have pledge of allegiance by Councilmember Lathan and prayer by Councilmember Reed.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If you would like to pray this morning, would you please remain standing? Dear God, I pray that we seek your advice. Let us not make decisions based upon what we know, but let us make our decisions based upon your wisdom. Please guide us, God. We place this meeting in your hands. We place our hearts and our minds in your hands so that we may make the right decisions on behalf of the city of Madison. Amen.
Amen. All our council members are present this morning. Is there anything to be added to our agenda this morning? If not, we can get an approval of our minutes of our previous meeting on March the 9th. If you had a chance to read them.
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
Are there any more discussion? All in favor, show of hands. Opposed, none. Those minutes have been approved. Legal matters, intergovernmental agreement, IGA City of Madison Board of Education. I believe Mr. Carter have looked over this intergovernmental agreement. Ed?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, say it again.
Mr. Carter, I turned to look over this agreement.
He had looked over the original one, and we told him the changes that we made as far as the time periods. Ashley, did we send this to Jimmy? So he has had a chance to look at it, and he did hear our discussions about the changes that were in here from the first time he looked at it. So,
Okay.
and he did not contact me, or did he contact you with any issues, Monica?
Now,
We can hear you.
okay. Just so you know, the two biggest changes, just to review those, is one, after working with all four attorneys, and that's a pleasure, but it's like wrangling cats. There's Kirby Glaze, who's the consulting attorney for the DDA. There's Jimmy Carter, who's the city's attorney. There's Corey Kirby, not to be confusing, who's the BOE's attorney. And then Lee Abney, who is the DDA's attorney that is writing up the agreements. All four attorneys have been consulted, and yesterday what they were doing was pulling the two IGAs apart. So it's actually, you previously reviewed one IGA, and this one pulls it apart. So it's BOE to the city, and then there's one city to the DDA, as opposed to it all being wrapped up in one. All the terms remain the same, it's just the format that's changed. So they're all in agreement that that's how it has to be conducted. The other second change, you might notice in wording, is it always says DDA acting as the city's urban renewal authority. Kirby Glaze just felt it needed to be fully articulated that since it's in the urban renewal boundary area, it was articulated every time that the DDA was doing business as the URA. And those are the two biggest changes. Other than that, the content has not changed.
And if I understand you right, Monica, the BOE's attorney has looked at this, so basically are they probably in agreement then with it also?
They've reviewed the basic agreement. They haven't reviewed this document yet. They will be doing that for their May 11th meeting. It's on the docket for May 11th.
Okay.
So I'm a little vague as to what our city attorney, has he seen this final document, and do we have his approval on it?
I spoke to Mr. Jimmy as late as 6 o'clock yesterday. He has reviewed the terms of the agreement, but not the form. And so what he said is y'all could approve it based on the terms and subject to form review by the attorney. That was his relay to me yesterday.
He told me the same thing as well. So if the council feel comfortable with approving this, with him making the final adjustments on this.
And again, no adjustments would be made to terms,
Right.
only to format.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we accept the intergovernmental agreement between the City of Madison, Downtown Development Authority, of Madison acting as, no?
Oh, no, I'm just going in order. Board of Education. Never mind.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was gonna
Is
say,
the time.
David, don't do it.
I move that we accept the
Number 8.
intergovernmental agreement.
Hold just a
Okay.
second, please. Monica wanted to say something. We need
Yes,
to-
Councilmember Hodges, I would suggest that the manager is correct, that the first arrangement needs to be from city with the BOE.
Okay.
That establishes one agreement. and
Okay.
then we
Yeah,
Oh, I
that's
see, yeah, okay, so
And
this
then
one
from the
first.
city to
All right, I
DDA.
move that we accept the intergovernmental agreement between the City of Madison and the Board of Education.
Second,
Subject to the
Yeah.
form approval by the attorney and
Subject to the form approval by the attorney.
second.
Are there any more discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, could we have, perhaps Councilman Latham would kind of give us a brief, I know you did that kind of at our last meeting, but if you could maybe, is it possible for you to summarize these two many pages documents into kind of a brief summary of what's in it?
Basically, what's in it, Eric, is that we had to bifurcate, is that the correct word, the property to separate it into two parts. One being the first part, which is on Pearl Burney, is going to be leased to Georgia Military College, and that's where the Boys and Girls Club is going to go. And that agreement will be a 5-year agreement on that particular property.
That's the administrative and the.
Right, the top
so-
part.
The top part.
Which was usually like the 8th grade hall when I was there. I
Yeah.
think it still is,
And,
Yeah,
and basically it includes the gym also.
in the gym, okay.
And that part behind. And the reason we had to do that is the term of the lease was gonna be for 5 years. The BOE is gonna want to do this and keep that building occupied. We're not gonna take possession of it. We have a 2-year period which is applying to, did we go to 2021 on that one, Monica?
Yes, sir, that's what
June 30th, 2021. They will continue to be responsible for the maintenance of that lower part, but we have about a 2-year period to try to find uses for that building, to determine what buildings may have to come down. So those terms had to be separated, and that's really what this does. It allows us to continue working on this part. So even if we say we're not gonna do anything with the lower part, we can't do anything, we turn it back to the BOE, this lease agreement will still continue. And that's the only reason that's really all this does. And it protects the city from, and as we said before, we had David go over, take a look at the buildings. He's felt very comfortable, and I'm not speaking for him, as is what he said at our last meeting, that the building has been properly maintained, they're doing the right things. And I think he felt very comfortable, and I wouldn't recommend approving this lease agreement if David had said he was uncomfortable. I would be discussing it again and trying to find a better way to do it. But basically this does is break those two buildings apart, two sections apart. And I think we may have some good news on the lower section that's working. And I think it's going to be, I'm an optimist when it comes to this, because I think that we've had so much interest in that lower part, is just trying to figure out what will be salvageable and what can go there. And I really, in my heart, in my brain, I think that we'll have something within the 2 years.
that's awesome.
That's really good news.
And the other thing that this does, Eric, is it will be called the Pearl Burney campus for GMC. That was one of the conditions that the BOE and the residents in that area,
did.
they wanted to maintain the Pearl Burney name. This does that. They wanted a place for Boys and Girls Club. This does that. They didn't want it boarded up. This does that. So, as far as I see in here, there's nothing negative.
That's great. And I want to thank you for yours and Monica and the DDA's hard work on this, Ed. I really applaud
Exactly.
you on your commitment. You've done
Exactly.
things that none of us probably could do in your position, so we appreciate that.
Thank you.
Was there any concern, Ed, on the part of the DDA that with the West Washington Gateway still being in early phases or middle phases, whatever you want to call it, that DDA is in a good position to take on another major project like this?
I think maybe our city manager can,
The best part, in the best part is the property will continue to be utilized. It'll be education in nature. It's just rolling on with the legacy of that, of the property in that
That's
area.
exactly right.
I think that's a win for the neighborhood.
is.
But the city's and DDA's financial exposure is at a minimum, very minimum, because maintenance and upkeep of that will remain either by the tenants or the Board of Education. The city and DDA is a conduit to get all these things done. The city's the go-between because the BOE can legally deal with the city to dispense of the property with a lease without any kind of compensation. But the DDA or the city has very little financial exposure, at least at this point. That was, and that was a big part of the conversation, at least the meetings that I was at, is that the DDA's plate is full right now with commitments, financial commitments with West Washington Gateway. Some of that has to wash through before there can be another development project. But this is a recognition and a validation of DDA's ability to take property in transition and to put them back to good use. And that's the reason I think they were initially contacted for this, and the BOE could have just said, we're gonna put a big fence around it and see what happens in 20 years. And that's not what's happening.
Well, and let me address that also. The success of the West Washington Gateway would be impeded if we let that building just sit there and go away. So it is actually in our best interest that we have something to do with it to make sure that it turns out to be an attractive situation, that it enhances that part of the community. Because we tore down a bunch of things in the West Washington Gateway that was inhibiting progress down there. And of course, we probably paid a little bit more for the property, but it had to be done because the city council, the mayor, we didn't want to go in and take legal action to get it done because it was not in the best interest of the city. But Eric, the success of that West Washington Gateway, all that work that's going down there, the millions of dollars, it has to have the rest of it has to have this other stuff done too. If we don't do right by the school and the board and the right by the building and that whole area is being affected. So
Yes.
just one second, Monica. I do want your opinion. And I think we just have to do this, you know, and as long as we can do it without any risk, I mean, we're not taking on any financial risk. That's what we're trying to do right here. We are taking on that we're going to try to give our expertise to the project and try to make it successful. If we can't make it successful and something happens, remember, we just say, thank you very much. We worked real hard, but we couldn't get anything done, and you now have to worry about it. And so we are totally protected, in my opinion.
So we're in the best position
I
that we
agree.
can be.
Monica had something, maybe legal, something. Go ahead.
I just raised my hand so that when y'all got to that point.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. So I wanted to address the administration part of that, Eric. David addressed the financial. In terms of the Downtown Development Authority, they have one group that is working on the gateway, 3 or 4 members, and then they have 3 or 4 members that are focused on the school. So therefore, you have a division of labor that's going on so that there is management for both pieces. And there's not a lot of responsibility on my end because they've retained Kirby Glaze with 4PM, who's an attorney and a developer he has a planner and he has a marketer. So the marketing of the property is all being done by a third party. So we're not really bearing the responsibility for that. We're guiding it, and we'll be taking input on that. But in terms of staff labor, it's not pulling a lot of my time because the feasibility study is being paid for, and the consultants only get paid if they produce people who want to invest and who want to utilize the property.
And,
I would like to say thank you That's part of my district. I represent the entire city of Madison, but that's part of my district. And to actually go ahead and do something with the space is amazing, because that community is trying its best to be lifted up. So we're building houses. It's different things that are being done in that community, in my community, to lift up the face of it. So to go ahead and do an intergovernmental agreement and to just start moving, I would like to say thank you on behalf of District 1 on that side. It's gonna be a tremendous help, and it's gonna look really nice. So thank you.
And that was one of the main concerns
Yes.
about, the community had when the middle school was going to
Yes.
move. What was gonna happen to the middle school. I'm just grateful that
I am
our
too.
DDA stepped up and the Board of
Yes.
Education stepped up to make sure it was not a building that was boarded up. It's a win-win for the city.
It is.
It's a win-win for the Canaan community.
It is.
And it's a win-win for Madison. So I
It is.
accolade with Kara, said thank you to the DDA for working so hard to make this to become a reality.
And Mr. Mayor, that was gonna be my last question for Councilmember Reed. Sounds like you believe, since the project is in your district, that it has widespread support amongst your community?
Yes, I still would like for us to go in and talk to the community. I don't know how, since we are to be 6 feet apart, but I'm sure, not to speak for everyone in my community, but just to not have it boarded up. We don't want it boarded up. We don't want people or kids thinking it's a spot where you can hang out at. So if we go ahead and put something there, and it's gonna uplift the community, because the school was the focal point, the middle school was the focal point of Pearl Street and that entire side of town. So to move GMC in and to allow the Boys and Girls Club to stay there and allow the gym to remain open for the Boys and Girls Club, it's all a win-win.
It's a win-win, and I do believe, I think Monica mentioned a while back that we did have a meeting with some of the community leaders, and they wanted to be a part of the discussion at some point in time, and Monica promised them
We
that when
will.
the time came, they would be a part of the discussion of what's gonna happen over at the middle school, so. And they couldn't do anything until this agreement is signed between the city and DDA, and they officially start working on what needs to be done.
And, Mr. Mayor, if
Yes.
may, I'll add this too, in response to the community and the neighborhood. I did mention this when we talked earlier. We're still waiting to get back some of the reports on the buildings, and when we can get those reports back, as Monica said, we have members of the DDA that are acting now because we don't have those reports. As
Right.
soon as we can get those reports, we can sit down, we're gonna add, that becomes a committee. We're gonna add members of the community that have input in there, so they can come in and they'll have meetings, and they'll
Yes.
start working on this more and more. And that's our intention, and that's the way it needs to be done. And I also wanna say, this is not just being done for the Canaan community, okay?
For the community.
I mean, all of us, lots of us, several in this room, went through there. So they went on to high school there. I've had kids that went through school there. I'm sure other people sitting in this room I see one back there I know went through there. Our clerk, yeah, 2 of them, 3 of them. And so there's there for everybody, and it's not just the Canaan community. I think it's great we're doing that, but it's for the citizens of Madison, Morgan County, anybody that's ever had kids go through that school. There's an attachment there.
It is.
And I can remember my kids left the primary school and got to go over to middle school. At that time, it was 4th grade, I think. And then it ended up, when we added the schools, and that was a big moment in their life.
We were
So-
there the longest of any schools. That was the one where we
Yes.
spent the most time, because it was
Fourth
fourth
through
through eighth, yeah.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
the other schools, yeah, it was longest, I think.
You know, I'm just proud because I was a graduate of Pearl High School, so I
Right.
feel really honored. Seems like I'm a little old, but I'm honored to be a graduate of Pearl High School.
You
and-
old.
And to see the name continue, so it's an honor
It
for our
No,
city.
I want to thank you all for your comments, and I think it's really helpful and positive for the public to hear
Yeah.
all of your comments, so thank you very much.
Thanks. Are there any more discussion? If not, all in favor, show of hands. Opposes none.
Mr. Mayor, I
Yes, sir.
abstained from voting, since I was the chairman in bringing this forward,
Mhm.
but if I had
I
voted,
understand.
I would voted for it.
Thank you. Vote carries. Yes, ma'am.
I did.
Carry. Councilmember Reed. In a governmental agreement, the IGA City of Madison and Downtown Development Authority. We can get a
I'll
motion.
do that one as well, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the intergovernmental agreement between the City of Madison and Downtown Development Authority of Madison, acting as the Urban Redevelopment Authority.
Second.
That more discussion? All in favor, show of hands. Opposed is none, vote unanimously. If we know Councilmember Latham is abstaining.
And tell you, Mr. Mayor, GMC's excited about this too. They've been calling me very frequently. They're ready to go.
Awesome.
Good.
Are they gonna have a presence in downtown too, or is it gonna be two campuses, or?
There'll be 2 campuses.
Awesome, that's great.
That is
Thank you, sir.
really good.
Whitson Construction Company with the Welcome Center. We talked about this, I believe, on Monday. And
Yes,
We
the contract, it'll be a AIA, American Institute of Architects contract, with Witzel Construction. I don't have that. It'll be on the agenda for the 11th. But just as a reminder, it's, further maintenance work at the Welcome Center. It's window rehabilitation and, mortar, or brick, repointing. Just as a reminder, the Georgia Trust for Historic Preservation has an exterior easement on that property. It was granted to them by the Warren County Foundation as simultaneously to, or before the property was deeded to the city. So we have a responsibility, which I don't think, hopefully we would do this without that requirement. But we have an annual inspection every year. They tell us some things we might need to look at, so we're taking care of those, and the building needs some repair. So we'll have that on the agenda for the 11th.
Okay.
Is the reference to the windows, David, is it to the windows in the front of the building?
No, windows in the front are fine.
I
They
thought
may need
the
paint.
ones in the back were already done.
The windows in the back in the one-story addition are done, but there are about 13 windows upstairs.
Oh, upstairs.
Across the front and across the side and in the back that are
yeah.
they're very large, and then for the most part, they're in pretty good shape, but they need, what'll happen is the contractor will remove the window sashes out, take them, put them in a workshop and totally redo, reglaze, clean the glass. Some tinting was put on those windows, which is kind of degraded. The windows will be cleaned and all reglazed and repainted, and then there's some water issues with perhaps water getting in around the sills, and that'll be addressed, and hopefully that'll help with some of the plaster issues inside. But one of the, I can't do it from memory, but the total amount of this is about $80,000 to $90,000, I think, maybe closer to $80,000. But it's gonna be done over time. It's not, we're not gonna pull every window out and board it'll be done about 3 windows at a time. And once they'll go back in, and then at some time we'll take down and do the tuck pointing of the brick. Curtis is a very, very good, respected contractor in preservation.
He is.
And, Mr. Coker has been looking at these things with me as we've been going along, try to do things the very best way we can.
So, when do they plan to get started after the contract is signed, or they want to get started now?
They
We can
may,
approve
it
this?
just depends, maybe a month or so before they pop 3 of those windows out, and then, they'll reinstall those and pull out the next 3. So it'll be a phased project.
Okay.
Thank you.
So do you want to approve this contract,
No,
or you want to
no,
wait till we get?
let's just wait till the
Okay.
11th. There's no big hurry. He can't get on it right away, so, we're fine.
Are there any unfinished business? Do you know if the Welcome Center will be opening up anytime soon, or are they going to sort of?
I've not heard about their schedule yet. I would expect it to be toward the middle part of the month. before they'll even consider opening. There's not a lot of activity, not a lot of tourism activity right now as that ramps up. I've been talking to Jennifer about their plans. They'll be here, I think, on the 11th. Ashley, am I correct? They'll be here for a proposed modification to the agreement with respect to the way they spend their allocation. They've not needed to spend a lot of marketing money right now with the tourism pause. So as you may know, the agreement calls for them to expend most of the money within the year. Well, they can't, it's not prudent for them to do that. So they'll be here to discuss that, and I would invite you to talk to them about their schedule for reopening.
Okay, thank you. Is that a new business we need to discuss? If not, restaurant service of alcohol during COVID-19 carry out, that problem?
The question came up, we had a restaurant that had opened dining back inside the building, and a few of them have done that and some have not. Well, they asked, can we continue to serve, can we continue to have it kind of both ways? So I was a bit conflicted on whether or not we should roll that back to go back to the regular rules about alcohol and only on-site consumption. But there are restaurants that are still doing strictly carry-out. So how do we split that baby? Do we say if your dining room's open, you don't have the option anymore? Or do we allow it to continue for another couple of weeks? I just want the council's input.
Well, I thought maybe one of the reasons the council did that because to increase the finance of the restaurant when
Sure.
they had
And I understand that.
curbside services, but once the restaurant opened, then they would just go back to normal.
But I think that puts people at risk that feel like they don't want to go inside. So if you give them a choice, and if people are choosing not to dine in, which, you know, is
stay.
responsible, then, but at the same time, they can have wine. I think it's a win-win.
It's not create a problem. I don't think that and I don't know that the state law would allow you to do it much beyond this time. I know a good many communities have done it. Might I suggest that we take another look at it on the 11th to find out how
Yes.
many restaurants have
think so.
reopened and
Yes.
what it looks like then, and then you all can make a determination.
Well,
Right.
also, I agree with Chris, is that that there's a limit of how many people they can have in, and people could have the choice, their
I
own
agree.
free choice. If they want to go in and be part of that 50% capacity or whatever that number is, 25%, fine. But if they don't feel comfortable, exactly with Chris, their feelings are, I would rather just get it and go home. But I would probably predict that the alcohol sales would go down because people are able to go get a bottle of wine at other places now. And so that part will probably diminish with people ordering takeout alcohol.
Well, it's not causing, a
Any
huge problem
problems.
right now, so
Yeah. I think
just
leave it in place.
leave it alone,
Yes.
leave it in place, and then.
Will it go away forever when? When you're saying that the state will, because the new shelter in place
It's still
I'm
June.
not-
doesn't
I'm
say
not- I'm
anything,
not
'cause that's not
exact-
even for,
I'm
that's
not
just.
exactly sure. I mean, I think at some point in time, we have to go back to the established rules and regulations
Yes.
for alcohol.
But who do we have that, is that a
That's,
state
that's
call?
your,
or-
that's your decision. The state might have something to say. Actually, I can't remember what the email said. They said this is legal right now after local jurisdiction. Am I right?
I mean, is it something we can ask, and I might be throwing a curveball here, but is it something that the restaurants have enjoyed, and maybe this would be something that will be beneficial going forward completely?
I
And is
don't
it
know.
something
I
we
don't-
need to
I
hear
don't
from
know.
them?
I don't
if-
think state law will allow this to go. I don't think you can have care. And
mean-
correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know. Do we
Yeah,
have
you, typically you can't. Our
So
ordinance
So how
doesn't
did they
allow that.
waived it, and then did they have an end period, or
Yeah,
what?
they actually put out something March 24th, outlining how and who can do carry-out of alcohol.
And they just have kept that open, and they'll give you a
Well,
There's
date?
no end date on this that I've seen.
We'll try to
So we
get
need
some
to-
clarity. Ashley's got a good group of clerks that she might can poll to find out, you know, who's doing what, and, I've got
Well,
the
and
same. for
Mike
managers.
Torino's on the restaurant, big restaurant association.
I would
the
think they would
president or
wanna
something.
keep it forever, but.
I
it's
would too.
State Department of Revenue and the legislature, they really drag their feet about
Mm-hmm.
alcohol changing and making alcohol rules more liberal.
I know.
And the, package store folks and the wine beer store folks don't want the restaurants to be in the package business.
No.
They, even though you're gonna pay
That's right.
quite a bit more
But as
at the
this-
restaurant, I'm
and-
thinking that people want it to settle back down to where it was.
Yeah. No, I hear you, but as long as, you know, there are gonna be people that are gonna be careful from now on until there's a vaccine, and so this kinda gives them the opportunity for people 65 and older to be able to,
For young folks.
the young folks, yeah,
Well,
the
the
most
question,
vulnerable.
question will probably answer itself in due time.
will.
Either the state will say it's
I think
time to
so, too.
roll back to the regular, normal rules, and then we won't have a choice in the matter.
Thank you.
But I just wanted to bring it up because a question had been asked, and we've kinda got restaurants with, you know, feet in two different buckets. You know, they're kinda
Right.
doing it both ways, but I
Right.
appreciate the fact that this way it gives the customers,
Yeah,
the
choice.
choice. And
Choice.
it gives the restaurants the choice. They're not forced to open seats if they're not ready to do that.
Well, have you heard, I know the Chop House opened this week. Have you heard, have they been successful this week or?
I see people in there eating, and I guess I've not walked in. I think, Philip has been walking in, checking for compliance on the rules for restaurants.
Are they the
so-
only restaurant that's open?
I think some of the other fast food restaurants, I
Waffle
don't know what
House.
else.
The Mexican
Yeah.
restaurant out on North Main Street, I can't think of the name of it, but they're open,
Okay.
Yeah.
dine in.
Okay, so I think over time, people are gonna
Pull
start
up back.
ramping back up.
Thanks. Monica Gick, is that you update?
Don't take it personally.
Probably shorted
I
out.
didn't. I appreciate Ashley's sanitation skills. So just a brief update on the GIC program. The team, of course, is working a little bit slower because most of their things involve community engagement, and social distancing works counter to community engagement. But I am thrilled to tell you that their grant that was written for them did come to fruition. And so there will be a CHIP grant on your docket for May 11th for your approval. We may not have the documents from the state yet, but we're asking for your acceptance of the grant. All the documents are still the same program, same federal guidelines. We'll follow the same rules, and we'll just ask for the mayor to have the discretion to sign those, because one of the reasons we got started late last time is because it takes somewhere between 3 and 6 months to execute the documents with the state. So we just want to be ready to approve their documents, but none of the parameters of the program have changed. The impact to the Canaan area, I'll remind you that CHIP is a community home improvement program. It is a program that funds flow to qualified households. You have to be income qualified. It's dependent on the number of persons in your household as well as your amount of income. And it is an assistance program to help make repairs to the home that keep it clean, decent, and sanitary. So there's no wallpaper that's going up. There's no extra bathrooms that are being added on. It is home stabilization is almost how I would refer to it. But there'll be somewhere between 8 and 10 more households that are impacted. And so just in terms of a 6-year walkthrough, we started off when we did our analysis. Bryce did a home-by-home analysis, curbside, 6 years ago when we started the GIC program. And there were around 75 to 80 houses that were considered endangered. And the reason we care about that not only is for the neighborhood and the tax base as well, but we care about that because you don't want to see a neighborhood start sliding. And once it starts sliding, it creates all kinds of other community programs that end up, or community problems that end up in the chief's ballpark. So you do want to see neighborhoods remain stable. Of those 75 houses, between the CDBG and the CHIP and the new CHIP that we're doing, we probably only have about 15 left.
Right.
So a great deal of community improvement effort, not all of it being done by local government, but it has kind of created a synergy that we've seen over the last 2 years, and I hope past COVID, we'll see the private market continue to do new construction, Habitat continue to be building one house a year, and we're seeing even home improvements out of those people that are not income qualified. They have the funds to do their own improvements now, and they're confident in that neighborhood. So I'm thrilled that the next 300,000 will be available to our community, and we'll look forward to seeing that implemented over the next 2 years. That's a first come, first served program. We'll advertise after we get the state contract signed.
Hey, Monica, since we've taken advantage of the video production crew at the high school with the mayor, I think it would be great for you to tell the story of what Gig's done that we can share on social media before this comes up. I mean, that way people have an understanding of what it is. And I mean, are you willing to?
I will encourage one of our GIC members to do that. I like to be behind the scenes, not in front of the scenes.
So many people
I'm not
rely
photogenic like the mayor.
on what they see on, and if we can tell that story, it's a pretty impressive story, and not many people fully understand what you guys have done, what Gig's done, what Carrie's done, what that group's done, and I think because it's not, I mean, there's just not a lot of controversy, and people tend to gravitate towards that. But if you could tell that story, or have somebody on your crew to do a 2-minute video on, or maybe Carrie on what Gig's done, I think it's very impressive, and I don't fully understand it sometimes, and
Well, I'd rather highlight the volunteers that are doing the work, not staff
I
who just
know.
facilitates it. So
well,
I'll
maybe y'all could
encourage-
do a cute something. I don't know, but it just
I'll encourage a
before
volunteer to
this-
do it with the district rep.
well
and that would
before
be
the
great.
next. I mean,
I
so
don't
you had to
wanna
take
talk.
the applications yet. So I think it's like we're gearing up for the next applications. This is what it's accomplished. This is what the wallpaper. Because people don't. They think they can get wallpaper or new flooring or whatever.
Yeah, it's not a pretty
Yeah,
pretty it up thing. So,
but it's
we're
important.
excited.
It's safety, yes.
Mr. Mayor, I agree with Monica from the standpoint, it really needs to be from some of the volunteers, some
It
of the
does.
people off the committees. I
It
think
does.
a lot of times, and I'll say this, from the DDA standpoint, it's not that I didn't want Monica to do presentations to the city council. I think it's better if that committee brings it. They know that we're working with Monica, and Monica is what gets things done, and we just need to thank her all the time for the stuff that gets done. But it's really, I think, more effective if it comes from that committee, the people that have worked in there, that have put the time in there. We know that you're working with her guidance, but it's more effective just simply because it's coming from a committee.
I agree.
Sounds great.
And I'll remind you that they're the ones doing the community engagement,
Yeah,
not
they
myself.
do.
So
They do.
I love their firsthand stories, and y'all need to hear more of those.
we do, and I think so does the cities, the citizens.
I
So-
agree.
And they need to be highlighted,
Mhm.
because it has really made a difference
It has.
in the community.
If we don't do it now, we'll forget to do it in 5 years, and we're like, well, we did that.
I think it's a good suggestion also if the committee brings some of those people with their stories, if they would be willing to say how it benefited them, and that would really, I think, help.
It will.
Thanks, Monica.
Yes.
Appreciate that.
Thanks, Monica.
Are there any comments from the public?
Mr. Mayor, I have one, but it's kind of gas, situation's the wrong word, but it's a, something, and a request has come up, and this does not often happen, where, we have a person, a property owner, that requests natural gas service in an area that we don't serve. There are not many places around that, on our edges, where another system might be able to serve within Morgan County. But that has happened, and it's happening right now. There's a farmer who is building, and we've not had any poultry houses built in Morgan County in quite a few years. But there is a grower that is building 6 or 7 very large poultry houses on High Shoals Road. This is between Bostwick and High Shoals. I'm very familiar with the property. It backs up to Riverwalk. I think I've heard some conversation about that, about the neighborhood. But The city of Monroe they're doing an aggressive expansion program on their natural gas. They're spending a good bit of money. They're going to run out, and they're going to be in a position to serve this area. There are also other growers in other areas where, and typically it's not residential that pushes growth because there's just not as much opportunity to pay back your investment when you're running, lines, either high pressure or low pressure lines, because there's a cost associated with, installing infrastructure. But in this case, I'm inclined to try to work with them. I don't want a customer to have to go to another source of energy because we can't, we're 15 miles away. We can't serve them reasonably. I'd love to one day. So with your permission, I'm gonna try to work something out with the city of Monroe whereby they are able to serve. I don't think there'll be any I don't think there'll be a franchise or anything that we can bleed off of it. I'll check that to see if that's a possibility. I would like, however, to have the option that one day in the future, when the city or the system is in a position, that there may be a sunset to their rights within the county. I don't know if that's a possibility either. For a system to come into someone else's territory, it's not as simple as the city of Madison agreeing to let them do that. There's what's called a countywide safety plan. Within Walton County, there are 8 natural gas suppliers in Walton. We're just one. There are other cities because a lot of them come into Walton County to tap onto the pipeline. I can't name all of them, but there are tons of them. Monroe, Covington, Social Circle, Madison, even Beaufort, city of Beaufort, the Atlanta Gas Light. So it's a complicated thing. The countywide safety plan would have to be amended and sent to the Public Service Commission for their consideration and approval. I'm going to look at it legally, logistically, but again, similar situation. We're in Walton County, and we're in an area around Social Circle. So we serve in another area along our pipeline. So I know how it is to cede territory and to have territory close to someone else. But the bottom line is I want natural gas to be available for someone who wants it. I'm sad that we can't serve them, but it's something that I take very seriously. But just to let you know, the final approval will be yours at the appropriate time.
How many chicken houses do we currently serve?
11 farms, probably 30.
And that's a big revenue source, is that
It's
right?
pretty big for
Yeah.
us, yes. But the city gas system, by the approval of council years ago, we did run some extensions, and
Yeah.
poultry houses are typically way off the highway. They're in isolated areas, so we had to run to get to them. We actually did the piping up to the houses on their property, so it was a turnkey operation. That was back when Mr. Stovall was the superintendent, and we did a lot. We ran out 441 toward Athens, then up Sandy Creek Road. We picked up a lot out there. We've not done a lot lately.
Are any of those that we've served in the past now not operating? I know that sometimes people pull out of those and they stay vacant.
We've lost a few to either burned or they have are windstorms. Joe Hayes went out of business.
Yeah.
I think a quail grower may be using part of his.
Okay.
Ronnie Stovall had 2 small houses. He went out. So it is declining somewhat.
Yeah.
But the upside is for all those places we ran, we're picking up residential. We're picking up that monthly consumption, and we're getting burner tips in those areas. So you never waste an investment if you're going down a road that has growth potential. So
I think a lot of our chicken houses and farmers have also gone out of business because they had to make some changes to their.
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah,
they were doing their-
upgrades.
and the upgrades were too expensive.
That's right.
And this is probably why we're probably gonna start seeing new ones come in. I think
Right.
we may get more, as people update their system. It was just too costly for some of these that have been in it forever. The money they would have to spend, they could never recoup. So-
It was somewhat of a,
But there are other very exciting things, and I'm not at liberty to talk about them publicly. If you will come by, I'll talk to you about them. May have mentioned them to you about some expansion that the city may be able to take advantage of, based on some technology and some things that, again, I'm trying not to be, vague, but I guess I am trying to be vague. But, that by virtue of our location and the way things are happening, I'd love to talk to you individually about those, and then they'll be public at some point in time. But we're always trying to expand. We always try to run pipes somewhere. We want to run in Buckhead Manor. We're looking at that, even though that's an after the fact and most of it's built out. We went into Cedar Lakes the same way. The city went in after the fact, but as water heaters go out and people want to upgrade their kitchens and their furnaces, they look at natural.
everybody likes to cook
They
with
do
gas.
like it. They like to cook with gas, like to heat with gas. Water heat is very efficient by, and this is my commercial, if you do the math on your power bill, and we need electricity. God bless Georgia Power. I mean, I work with them every day, but just do the math on your bill to see what you pay per kilowatt hour, 11, 12 cents a kilowatt hour, and then I can give you the conversion on what that energy costs for natural. It's pennies. It's pennies. I promise you that we're under $7 an MCF right now. There is an energy glut, and it won't always be that low, but we've been that competitive for a long time, and we
You know,
just need to keep telling our story.
I'm sure we all know, but maybe the public doesn't know, that we're very fortunate in Madison that David sits on the state gas board. So he's very privy to all that kind of stuff. I do have one question, though. When you are gauging the feasibility of expansion beyond the city limits, is it more important to have a potential facility near the downtown or near the pipeline, which I believe goes all the way up to Jersey, where we
It is
pick
Jersey,
up?
right. Of course, you know, along the pipeline is no question, because that's 4-inch, you don't think 4-inch pipe is very much, but when it's running at 400 pounds per square inch, that's a lot of molecules of gas that's pressed into that. Think about all our large industrial users and commercial users and institutional. It's amazing that we can get all of that through that small pipeline, but I don't think it's going to be very much in the future. And when we do track the number of customers we have that are outside of the city limits, that's just outside in Morgan County, and that's in Rutledge and Jersey and Walton County. In not the too distant future, we may have more residential customers outside of the city than we do inside the city. That's how we've tried to grow the system in Walton and different parts of Morgan County. We've run down to
You're in Whispering Lakes.
Windsor Lakes down Greensboro Highway.
You down there?
And Madison Lakes was put in. Hopefully that'll kick back off one of these days.
It's in Whispering Lakes too, isn't it?
City water is
Water
there.
is down in Whispering Lakes, but not
the
gas,
Okay,
no.
not gas.
But Buckhead Manor, we missed out on, because if they commit to total electric and keep gas out, then their install for their infrastructure is a lot less. And it's not, it is a math, it is a computation that the power companies do. They need to look at their payback as well, and I understand that. And if natural's in there, they know they're gonna cede some of their the demand and some of their revenue to natural gas. So we're looking at our expansion, because we're right there on Buckhead Road, and I'd like to get in there and do it very cleanly and let the people know that when you need us, you know, we're right there. We can't sell it if we don't have a pipe in front of the house.
Do you ever get conversations from the citizens from, I think it's Madison, Phil on 278?
Fields of Madison,
Fields of
we've
Madison.
not had a lot of demand in that area. That's another possibility. We're still looking for the lowest hanging fruit, and we're making, you know, gas taps. We went into, I can't remember the name of it, was Markham's Hill. That's a small, you know, that'll be built out very
Yeah.
quickly, and we weren't in there initially, and we had someone that wanted natural for most of the new houses in there. I think Ryan Cathy's building in there, they're tying on to natural. So
Is there any way at some point we can kind of see, I know we've recouped what we lost with Georgia Pacific at this point, right? Are we even, or
I didn't mean lost.
You
with
remember when
Georgia
we
Pacific.
lost them as a customer?
Well, they went out and they changed their process, but they're back again.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes, they're back. You know,
Okay.
managers by nature, we always scream and shout and cry, the sky's falling, but then when the sky doesn't fall, we don't always come back and tell you that. But it did happen.
That's
Their
I
water,
remember that.
their water consumption and their gas consumption went way down, but they, for whatever the process is, and I'm not sure, I missed your tour, I missed the tour that you
Yeah.
guys went
That's
on
where
with
they're
the plant.
taking,
Great
they're
tour.
taking and cleaning the
Via
discharge.
the discharge,
Okay.
right,
And they use that gas to do it, and
right.
I think we were told that it was, the emissions that would come out of there now would equal one wood-burning fireplace residentially.
But they're back to being
Oh.
a very good user, water and gas, and we're here for them. They did cut back for quite some time, but
And
Who is
water-
our
Water
biggest-
was cut way
Yeah.
back too.
Yeah,
it
who's
was
our
cut.
biggest gas customer? Our largest gas customer?
largest gas customer is Takeda.
Takeda,
yes,
outside,
and then-
but
and then,
within the city, I mean, within the county.
Probably BD Bard.
Okay.
Theirs is a seasonal because they take and have to heat air from outside, so when the temperature outside is lower, they have to spend more gas to heat it up. But also Mannington.
Is the hospital in?
Hospital, the high school, middle school, all we worked every angle on that.
Yeah.
We tried to say we want to be part. I know you're trying to save energy on the electric side, but we also would like to keep local money local. You know how gas profits, the margin we have on gas is invested back into the system and also into community projects. So we're giving rebates. We're being aggressive. We're trying to stay out there and trying to market a good energy source. But I'll try to.
I just love to see a breakdown. I mean, I know we do it around budget time, but just to see what our revenue, our actual revenue from gas is from which customers.
That's
and kind of a break.
better time to look at
Yeah.
that is the audit because they
Okay.
look at all the
That's
costs.
in November,
That's
this in the fall.
at the end of
right?
the year.
So, okay.
But we'll give you some examples of
okay.
different things.
Thank you, David.
Thank you. And I'll come back when I've come up with an idea of a way to work with the city of Monroe. I'm not gonna seed the top half of the county. I'm not gonna do that. It'll be in small bites, so to speak, if at all. Thank you.
Anything you have to say to us this morning, Chief?
I think we're all good, as David said.
Microphone.
Sergeant Malcolm checking on those folks, and, we'll monitor those as they open up and make sure we're in compliance.
Okay. So Dave, we're now ready for public comments, if anyone wants to call in.
We'll give it about 30 seconds to a minute and see if we get anybody.
You know, Chief, I walked through Wellington Park, maybe a week, 10 days ago, and wasn't a soul in that entire park, and I was impressed that the security tape was still up around the playground equipment. The plywood that was blocking the baskets with the little plastic tie things hadn't been taken down. I mean, it was, I would have thought for sure oh, they said there were other times? Yeah, I've kind of wondered about that.
We had to remove the goals to get the point across, and I hated to do that. But there was a bit of conversation about tennis and about basketball, and the recreation department, Lance Alexander's really been taken, and I'm proud I don't have Facebook because they might get to, and they can still do that, and I can be.
Somebody cut the locks at the tennis courts.
Yeah, but we got that taken care of. I'm very, very firm in my conviction that even though you can social distance better with tennis, I just think it's patently unfair to have one sport like that open to the public and another that's not. We'll do them both at the same time.
I agree.
Whatever I say, the Board of Education and Rec Department in the city, if they want to open their courts, maybe we can't say a whole lot about that. But the Hill Park courts, we're working on those. We're gonna get them in better shape, but they're closed until we'll take another look at it on the 11th at your meeting and figure out how we can do that. It makes sense. But the goals were made functional again, and we got a call about it, and then we've since closed them back down again.
Keisha, Mayor Bottoms had a long article in the Atlantic yesterday that it really talked about how cities and counties have had their power stripped away, and it's a great article. I encourage you to read it. I'll flip it to you guys, but
And,
and the things that she's dealing with in the city of Atlanta are not necessarily what somewhere else is going to be dealing with that hasn't had the outbreak like she has. So.
Monica has tracked cases, or at least
Yeah, I
confirmed
saw that. That
cases.
was great.
Did you send that out to
Uh-huh.
everyone?
She sent it out to us. No? No, I copied you. Oh, me.
Yeah,
Well,
I'd
that's
I'd
not
ask her to
fair.
send it out to everyone. She's got her number straight now, so, or the graph. It just shows that I think the county and the city and the county and the people, and they're to be congratulated that our rates are lower for similar sized populations. And there are a lot of factors in that. And if you go to the AJC and their breakdown, they have a state map, and they show in brighter red the counties that have had the worst and the higher numbers.
Oh, wow.
And you look in southwest Georgia, and the whole region is just purple. I mean, it's just, you see how that one perfect storm of infection manifested itself and still
And they have
continues.
good health care. I mean, they have access to good hospitals and still are
But
dealing with
Morgan
it.
County's numbers are low
Great.
relative to other.
I think the Citizen published something, maybe it's what you forwarded, but they listed the 7 counties, including Madison, and the 6 counties that we share a border with. And as far as the number of positive cases per 1,000 population, we were number 2, the least out of the 7. Only
Jasper,
Walton
right?
County was
Oh,
the only
Jasper,
other one.
yeah. I mean, Walton.
It was a little
So
bit
the
lower.
only way to really look at it and expanding your thought a little bit is the rate of, and again, that has a lot to do with testing and
Yeah. It
whatever
does.
else, proven cases.
But
That's all you
I
have to know
noticed
about.
there's 3 in Morgan in the hospital. Do we know if they're still in the hospital, or is that number mean hospitalized currently or have been? I don't know.
We had an employee that had a fever last weekend, and he reported it to his supervisor. He was told to stay at home, and we paid to have him tested at the hospital, and it came back negative. So the protocol we put in place is working. Employees are reporting things, even a low-grade fever. They're being asked to stay at home, but the testing was done by the hospital, returned to me, and within just over 24 hours, which is a fabulous turnaround, and
is.
we appreciate the hospital working with us on that, and the city is paying for that cost. And there's one other thing I needed to. The one other thing is I'm taking the I'm using my discretion. We went to kind of half schedule. In other words, some employees stayed at home, and we worked as kind of a skeleton crew in all departments possible. But the police department wasn't able to do that, and some employees may have worked a bit more than others. And I'm trying to equal the playing field in the next check that the employees get. Some will be compensated for the time they worked. The police will be compensated for the fact that they worked. You can call it hazard pay, you call it whatever you want to. It's not a lot, but it's just, I think it's fair that employees that work their whole schedule may get a little bit more, get compensated a little bit more than the people who had days off with pay. So
That's
if you've got
good.
any questions about that, it's not a huge windfall, but it is, we're working out the numbers and working out the methodology right now.
I think it needs to be done. Thank you, sir. We didn't have a call-in meeting this morning. I told our clerk and our city manager that maybe we need to do a trial run of that for our next work session. So if there are anyone that late getting on, if there's any, I guess,
Public comment?
public public comments and things like that, you know. And let's do it at our work session and see how smooth it goes, and then we'll take it from there.
So the meeting on the 11th will be this format?
It'll be this format, yeah, be this format. Yeah. And we don't wanna, one thing, I don't want us to get away from the public, you know.
Well, how do we do public comment? Will we do one at a time out? I mean, I know that there's gonna be some,
Is what, from the work session?
no, from that that next week's meeting, the first real
If
meeting.
there are comments, we could certainly take those comments, yeah. They could call in, I'm sure, like they're doing now.
That's your call. We
Because
had-
that's
we
a
had
zone,
one-
there's a zoning issues, right?
Yeah, but you can do it, I think you're legal to do it either way you
Okay.
want to.
And I think that there's someone that, there was one person that we got a letter from something, and we had made provision for that particular individual to come if she wanted to, you know, or he wanted to.
If your decision is to remain under
But
10
let's
for your
under
meeting
10,
in
you
here,
know, and-
then we need to go ahead and put the notice out that public comment for any purpose or the zoning will be by call in.
If I call in.
And we'll publish the number and at the appropriate time, because there will be public comment, I'm sure.
I would guess, David, if we could manage the 10, I mean, we probably have more, we're right at that number here now, that they could wait outside, just like you have to wait to get your hair done.
That's right.
When we get to public comments, if they want to come in here and direct us, I think we could let them, one person at a time, come in.
That's
I mean,
that's
that-
entirely up to y'all.
Because I think some of those people want to be able to come and look us in the eye, and I don't want them not to have that opportunity. I really,
Well, just playing devil's advocate, anything on your agenda should be open to that same thing. If you're gonna do it for one item on the agenda, whether it's zoning or any other agreement.
I'm not doing it for one item, I'm
Well, I
just saying.
understand that,
yeah.
but we know that one will be, so that's you guys,
Well,
that's your
Bill's not gonna be
decision.
here. Will you be here? I mean, if we could figure out how many, that way you could have a rotating one person that could rotate in, just like you said,
Well, if you can go by kind of guidelines of.
the hairdressers, yeah.
Restaurants, if you have 500 square feet, you can have 10 people as long as they stay 6 feet apart.
Yep.
And you could set up.
Can we
set
just
up the
offer
the
that
chairs
opportunity?
To accommodate that.
And then either or, you can
Call in.
call in, but just know that we're not gonna accept more than 10 people and,
I liked Bill's suggestion too, that what is it, 10 people per 500 square feet?
That's what the restaurants are having to comply with, 500 square feet per 10 people, yes.
that way.
And remaining 6 feet apart.
They could have the choice whether or not to come in or not, and if it's, but anyway, it's,
Well, we can give them that choice if they want to, if they're.
I was just saying, maybe you and David could work that out. Mr. Mayor, I was just giving my thoughts on that process. I think that's something that we don't all have to vote on. I think if you and David could make it safe, that's good with me, that's all.
Maybe we could even remove the chairs, just put chairs that would accommodate that spacing. And
Perfect.
if we're sitting back here, and then
Yeah.
just start from whatever and figure the
I
square
don't
footage.
think
But
we'd
we
be able to.
cannot
do
sit
that.
back here.
We're gonna have
Oh,
to.
well,
No,
that's
we're
true.
not gonna be able to
Yeah.
sit back here.
we need those dots.
I just won't show up. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, we're not
Give
gonna
y'all
be
some
out
room.
there.
That's
No.
why, they just pointed that out.
We can't-
I wasn't thinking
Yeah,
we can't
we're
be
not gonna
there,
be
be
there.
spaced out.
I don't wanna be that close to you, Rick.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I don't wanna be that close to you
blame
either,
you.
Eric.
Yeah, thank you, Carrie. We're all in agreement.
You're welcome.
There's nothing else, no more comments, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Y'all have a good weekend.
Paving bids are coming in this morning. Paving, resurfacing,
Uh-huh.
I'll let you know about
Good
that.
deal. Okay.
Just, and striping's done.